What is happening, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of The End of the Week, where we discuss everything national security, international relations, etc., etc., etc. Super excited to have you with us this week. There was almost too much going on. I couldn't keep track of everything, and even the stuff that I do try to track, I couldn't keep track of. But before we keep tracking on the tracking, if I could get you to do me a favor, to go ahead and gently caress that like button, that thumbs up button. If you could also, while you're down there, go ahead and click the subscribe button or the follow button on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. Both of those will let the algorithm know that you find some value in this and that you want to know more about this, you enjoy what we're doing, and that it will also share that to other people who also can find some value in what we're doing. Also, if you want to know when more videos come out or when episodes of anything come out, go ahead and hit the notification bell. That way you can be alerted anytime a new video drops. But you don't need to know when this one drops because it drops every Saturday at noon Mountain Time. So it's afternoon here. I can't wait to be done with this. I'm going to go behind me and grab a beer after this, and I'm very excited. So why don't we go ahead and get started? First off, first story of the day. Another secretary is down. This week, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has fired the Secretary of the Navy. This is just one more senior leader that has been fired within the Department of Defense since the takeover of the Trump administration. We started off with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, C.Q. Brown, being fired, as well as the Chief of Naval Operations and the Commandant of the Coast Guard. Those three firings were very controversial in the fact that they fired a black man and two women. And in these cases, pretty historic roles in the fact that C.Q. Brown was only the second African-American chief of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And then both the CNO and the Commandant of the Coast Guard were both the first time that a woman had held either of those positions. Despite what the Pentagon says, it seems that they were hired or they were fired purely on the basis of their race, but they are also arguing that at the same time they were hired specifically for that, even though C.Q. Brown had been the Chief of Staff of the Air Force for a while and fairly well-regarded officer within the Air Force. Same thing with the CNO. I don't know anything about the former Commandant of the Coast Guard, but she also seemed to be highly regarded as well. This time, though, this is a little bit higher up on the food chain in that the Secretary of Navy is the senior leader that reports to the Secretary of Defense and ostensibly to the President of the United States on all things naval related. The Secretary of the Navy is also responsible for the Marine Corps, as the Marine Corps administratively falls underneath the Department of the Navy. So this is been questioned a lot. I can't seem to find any great sources as to give good definitive reasons. There's probably something to do with some disagreements over policy or disagreements over the conduct of the current conflict in Iran. But it seems that we are sort of reverting back to some of the actions that happened in the first Trump administration, where it was quite common for people to leave their positions and then to be filled in perpetuity with acting something. Like in this case, we're going to have an acting Secretary of the Navy. We currently have an acting Attorney General. So we'll see how this continues. And it's really important, like these positions that are they're Senate confirmed. They help lead and implement policy across these departments, and it's really important that we have someone there, someone who has been confirmed by the Senate that would hopefully have the trust and confidence of not only the administration but the Congress as well as the American people. So it'll be interesting to see if the president does nominate a second Secretary of the Navy for this administration. But I don't anticipate it. It doesn't seem like it'd be something that they're going to do. I have a feeling that they're going to continue to act within the acting secretary space, but we'll see. We'll see. I've been wrong before. In fact, probably more often than not, I've been wrong. But we shall see. But along that same line, there was also a story of the U.S. Army's chief of chemical and nuclear security being escorted out of the Pentagon. Who is that, you may ask, and why was he escorted out? The Chief of Chemical and Nuclear Security, that is kind of close to the title. I'm not exactly sure what the title. He works within the G57 office of the Department of the Army. But essentially what this man's job was to do was to ensure that those around the Army's nuclear and chemical weapons were reliable, trustworthy, and passed all their background checks. And I find that absolutely hilarious in the fact that the man was caught on a hidden camera from an undercover journalist talking about military secrets. At one point in the video, he asks, "You're not a spy, are you?" And then eventually says that if you ever want someone to to get him to give away secrets, you send a pretty girl. And I'm understanding that this reporter was an attractive woman, and I just find that hilarious. Right? It's unreal that this is like a thing that is happening. I think everybody has their breaking point. Everyone has their price, but you're entrusted with a position of power and authority over classified information, over the security of weapons of mass destruction. Like, these are really important things, and you start to spill the beans over dinner with a pretty woman. And I don't think that this, from what I understand, this is not a problem of the current administration. This was someone who had been around for quite some time. And I have a feeling what it is this was a man who just wanted to give, just feel that energy of power and all of that. So it's really interesting that this is a case, because not long after that, there was an arrest and an indictment given to a special operations soldier who, I'm not sure which units he was acting, but the way that they're talking, it makes it sound like it's one of the tier 1 units in North Carolina. And he was arrested for utilizing classified information to make nearly $500,000 on, I believe it was Polymarket, one of those trading platforms that's gambling but not gambling, because it's, you're trading futures or whatever. But apparently the charge is he is innocent until proven guilty. However, the charge is that he decided to utilize the information on the upcoming Maduro raid and place a bet on whether the Venezuelan government will still be in power by a certain date. And he ended up making $400,000 on that raid. And this puts me into an interesting mind, because first off, much like the previous gentleman who was the head of nuclear security, you swear an oath. You are supposed to be upheld to a high standard, especially at that type of unit that does the things that only they can do, that are the nation's problem solvers par excellence. Yet you are taking this privileged information and enriching yourself, and that to me is wrong. However, at the same time, it's not that much different than what is happening both in Congress and the current administration. It has been, there is no ban on Congress members making trades, even though they have privileged information. Part of what they do, especially those on certain committees and subcommittees, they have access to information that the average American doesn't. And so many members of Congress have enriched themselves through this practice. And then at the same time, there has been some claims about members of the administration, small members or lower ranking members, making money. It seems that there's been an uptick of people seeming to know things before they happen and making a lot of money. And it's not like a one-off. It's like one or two people, or a bunch of people actually, who are consistently making a lot of money. One of them was like MAGA for life or something like that as their handle on Polymarket. And so, I mean, they weren't exactly the smartest cookie in the cookie jar. But in one side, I can see, like, how do we hold this man accountable for this when those of his superiors in both Congress and the administration are doing either something very similar, or in fact, in my mind, something worse, which is, manipulating the stock market. So it's something to be watched. This gentleman, he was named in the indictment. He's a master sergeant in the Army, which is an E8, fairly senior enlisted man. And so, I mean, it's this tough place because, like, for the first guy, there's nuclear secrets, chemical secrets, things that shouldn't be shared that are serious threats to national security. This guy just made a retirement, right? Because, like, no matter, unless you're a senior officer, you're not going to be rich as an enlisted man. You know, most guys probably will work after they get out of the service, and it's really unfortunate that this is a conversation that we're having, and it ties to a lot of the conversations that need to be had around these trading markets and the dangers of gambling, just the risks of, especially when it comes to as fairly unregulated as it is. There's national security risks, I believe, to platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket, because it will affect policy decisions when it comes to what people say and do. So it's really concerning, and I really hope Congress does something about it. I don't think they're going to. Unfortunately, that's a whole other system that needs some reform. But that is So those kind of like those last two stories are really connected, kind of on integrity and the weirdness that is the current political state with futures trading and these weird trading platforms and everything. But the big one, and I'm sure most of you are here because you saw it on the thumbnail, the A-10. The A-10 has received a reprieve. So, as the rescue of a downed aviator in Iran happened, one of the things that a friend of mine was on Fox News, Newsmax, a couple of other shows, but his name is Aaron Love. He is a former Air Force pararescueman, and they had him on to talk about what happened when they rescued the F-15 weapon systems officer in Iran. And they had, he was on with some pilot of some kind, usually a rescue pilot, or maybe they had someone else there. But, you know, one of the things that it really brought attention to was the role of the A-10 in combat search and rescue. And the A-10, while famously known for the BERT, the sound of the gun as it shoots, the aircraft itself was designed around this 30 millimeter cannon. The aircraft actually slows down as it shoots. It's a sight to see, and having called in airstrikes with an A-10, it is spectacular. But the thing to know about it is that A-10 pilots, after they go to the Air Force Weapons School, which is the Air Force equivalent to the Top Gun School in the Navy, made famous by the two Maverick movies, after that, then they can attend upgrade training to become a Sandy. A Sandy is a call sign, but what it signifies is that they are qualified in search and rescue operations. And then if you become Sandy 1, you are the rescue mission commander, the overall command. I write about this in my Substack. I will put a link here, whiskymo.substack.com. Please go read it. I talk about this, and it's really important for us to have this conversation, because I think what is interesting about the A-10 is that the Air Force has been trying to retire this plane for years. Congress has constantly stepped in, and the problem is in the acquisitions system, we don't have a process where we can necessarily replicate one-for-one capabilities. And with the A-10, this is really important because it provides two unique roles that it is uniquely suited for. Yes, multiple platforms can provide close air support, but no platform is created with a dedicated mission to provide that support. And because it's slow, because it is armored, it can take a beating as it's low and slow, and providing that close air support, which by doctrinal definition, close air support is any kind of air dropped munition that is in close proximity to friendly forces that requires detailed integration. And that's like that's such a thing that the Air Force has an entire job on the ground with it. That is a tactical air control party operator. They have a JTAC certification, a Joint Terminal Air Controller certification, which is, there are other jobs that have a combat controllers in the Air Force, certain special forces, commo sergeants, Ranger forward observers. The SEALs go to get JTAC qualled, but there is no platform, especially as the jet age has came to be in Vietnam era, that has the capabilities that the A-10 does. And the Sandy call sign itself actually stems from some of the call signs back in Vietnam, when some of the propeller-driven planes were given that rescue mission commander role, and they work as part of the rescue just ecosystem that includes the HC or MC-130 aircraft. I believe that is a Royal call sign. The helicopters, the HH-60s, which is Pedro, or Jolly in this case. I believe this is a Jolly case. This is a Jolly call sign. And then you have your pararescuemen and your SEER specialist. Your pararescuemen are the only dedicated personnel recovery specialist in the Department of Defense. And our SEER specialists, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, are those who help train any high risk members of the Air Force in how to escape and evade and survive, as well as help with the reintegration process once we recover them, because we don't ever leave anyone behind. And if you want to know more, again, read my Substack, but go ahead and pop on to the One's Ready podcast. I will leave a link in the thing below, because they talk about PJs all the time. I've actually been a guest on that podcast. You can look, I believe it's episode 286. I talk about the history of Air Force Special Warfare. But it's really important that we have this conversation about the protection of something like the A-10. We can't keep it going forever, right? Like, that platform, they don't make them anymore. Parts are hard to come by. But what we need to do, and this is what I recommend in my Substack article, is that we create some sort of committee, some sort of sub-organization within the Department of Defense, that as we are retiring and sunsetting these platforms, we need to do a great job of identifying the capabilities that they bring, the uniqueness that they have. And instead of trying to force everything to be everything, like the F-35, which is great at certain things, but it's just can't do, like, it can't do the Sandy mission. It's too damn fast. It just doesn't have the training or any of those things. It's not built into the system. So when we replace, and when we eventually get to the place where we have to sunset the A-10, we need to replace it capability for capability. And I think that while I have been critical of exquisite systems in the past in some of my previous writing, there are times that you have to have a unique, exquisite system to replace and to provide a capability. And in this case, this is one of the most important ones that we do, because one of the promises that we make to each other and to our service members is that you won't be left behind, and that we're going to come and get you no matter what. Even if you don't make it, we're going to come and find you, and we're going to come and get you, and we're going to return you home with honor. As the SEER specialists motto is, return with honor. So the A-10 is effectively going to remain in the inventory until 2030. My hope is that we can solve that problem and provide something newer, and maybe something that'll be even better than what the A-10 can provide. But we'll see how that goes. We got 4 years to try and figure that out, and hopefully people will read my Substack and we can talk about it. As always, my friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and gently caress that like button. Let the algorithm know that you've got some value out of this, especially if you like A-10s. Just give me that thumbs up, man. Like, who doesn't love A-10s? I love A-10s. If you would like more of this, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way that YouTube and Spotify can let others who are like you know that this podcast is out there, and that they would enjoy this. Also, if you want to know when I drop new episodes on YouTube, go ahead and hit the notification bell. But also, if you think that someone would enjoy this, or that someone needs to hear what I'm talking about, go ahead and share. Why don't you go ahead and post it on social media? I would really appreciate it. Likes, subscribes, notification bell, shares, that really does help us expand and get a larger audience. I'm constantly seeing greater and greater numbers in views and listens. So thank you to everyone who listens or watches, everyone who has left a comment last week. I see you. I hope that you all have a wonderful and lovely upcoming week, and I shall see you again at the end of the week.